All right, let's do this. Diving deep into single-use plastics in California. We've got two reports, a technical appendix, and a final report, all about the 2023 source reduction baseline.
Yeah, basically like a plastic audit for the whole state.
A plastic audit.
I like that.
Figuring out just how much single-use packaging and food service ware is out there.
Exactly. A mountain of plastic, I'm sure.
It's pretty wild.
So how did they even begin to measure all that plastic? I mean, did they send out an army of, like, plastic counting robots or something?
Well, not robots, but it's fascinating how California is taking this really data-driven approach to tackling plastic waste.
Okay, so data is key here.
Yeah, and this baseline wasn't just, a random idea. It was actually mandated by law.
Aha, right, SB 54.
The Plastic Pollution Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act, SB 54.
SB 54, got it. And it's not just about weighing all that plastic, right? It's about counting every single little piece.
Every little fork, every bread bag, every single plastic component.
Talk about a massive undertaking. It's huge. Really highlights the sheer scale of the issue.
Okay, so how did they even start? Where did they even begin?
They started by analyzing everything from the manufacturer's perspective.
Interesting. So going straight to the source.
Yeah, figuring out which industries are the biggest culprits when it comes to using plastic packaging.
Okay, so instead of chasing down every plastic straw in the state, they went to the source. Makes sense.
Exactly.
But how do you even categorize industries by their plastic use? Like, how do you even begin to do that?
They used something called NAICS codes, which is basically a system for classifying businesses.
Okay.
And it allowed them to pinpoint industries that really, really heavily rely on plastic packaging.
So it's not just the obvious ones like, food and beverage.
Right. It goes way beyond that.
What other industries surprised you?
Think about all the plastic involved in shipping furniture or electronics.
Wow, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So furniture manufacturers and tech companies, they're all part of the plastic equation too.
They're all
Wow, that's crazy. So the report, it dives deep into all these different industries.
It breaks it down really well.
But it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it goes even deeper.
Yeah.
They chose what they called representative products for each industry to really kind of dissect the types of packaging used.
Okay, representative products. Give me an example. What's a product that, screams plastic packaging to you?
Well, just picture this. A humble loaf of sliced white bread.
A loaf of bread.
It's like a staple in most households, right?
It is.
And it perfectly represents the commercial bakery industry.
Okay, I'm seeing it.
All those plastic bags and twist ties.
So by analyzing the packaging for that loaf of bread,
Yeah.
they could extrapolate insights about the whole commercial bakery industry.
Exactly. It's a smart way to get a representative sample without having to analyze every single product. Efficient.
But to make the numbers truly accurate,
Yes.
they had to factor in the market share for each of these representative products. Right? Market share. Explain it to me like I'm, buying groceries.
Okay, so imagine you're at the grocery store and you're staring at this wall of bread.
A wall of bread. Yep.
Maybe half of those loaves are sliced white bread.
Okay.
That means sliced white bread has a 50% market share in that store's bread aisle.
Okay, so it's like figuring out what percentage of the bread market that specific type of bread represents.
Exactly.
Ah, I got it.
And by knowing the market share, they could accurately estimate how much plastic is associated with each product.
Makes sense.
But wait, there's another layer to this bread and plastic puzzle.
Oh no, another layer.
They also had to consider the difference between individual consumer sales, what we buy at the grocery store,
Right.
and bulk sales to businesses.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Restaurants, cafeterias, all that.
Because the packaging for a single loaf of bread is going to be very different from the packaging used for a bulk order of bread for a restaurant.
Right. Think about those giant plastic bags or those cardboard boxes they come in.
Yeah, totally different.
And that difference is huge when it comes to both the weight and the number of plastic components involved.
So they had to consider the type of industry, the product, its market share,
That's right.
and whether it was being sold to businesses or consumers.
All of that.
This is starting to sound incredibly detailed.
Oh, it gets even better. They created these incredibly detailed packaging profiles for each representative product.
Packaging profiles. Okay, now I'm picturing like tiny little plastic detectives with magnifying glasses examining each bread bag.
It's not that far off. They meticulously weighed every single plastic component.
No way. So for our trusty loaf of sliced white bread, they actually weighed the bread bag, the tie, Even that little plastic tab that keeps it closed.
Every little bit. And don't forget the tape on the boxes and the shrink wrap on the pallets used for transport, because all of that adds to the plastic footprint.
It's amazing how something as simple as a loaf of bread can involve so many different types of plastic.
It really is.
And they didn't stop there.
Yeah.
They even factored in how online shopping or e-commerce affects packaging, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because when I order things online, it usually comes in a cardboard box with a bunch of plastic air pillows or bubble wrap.
Exactly. And all of that extra plastic had to be accounted for.
Wow. So they use data from major online retailers to kind of estimate the average amount of plastic packaging used for online orders.
Yep, they really tried to capture the whole picture.
I'm honestly really impressed with their thoroughness.
It's pretty remarkable.
They really left no plastic component unturned. But hold on, we're only talking about product packaging right now, right?
Yeah.
What about all the single-use plastic we encounter when we eat out or grab takeout? I mean, that's got to be a huge contributor, too.
You're absolutely right. We can't forget about food service ware.
Forks, cups, clamshells, the whole shebang.
And let me tell you, the approach they took to calculate the baseline for all of that was just as fascinating and detailed as the packaging model.
Okay, my brain is officially ready for a plastic-filled feast. Let's dig into the world of food service ware.
All right, let's do it.
I'm ready.
The food service ware model is super comprehensive,
Okay.
encompassing 31 different types of venues where we encounter single-use plastics.
31 different types. Okay, give me some examples.
We're talking everything from your typical sit-down restaurants and fast food joints,
Okay, yeah, those are obvious ones.
school cafeterias,
Uh-huh.
airplanes, trains, even those little snack packs you get at the movie theater.
Wow, I never even thought about those.
It's everywhere. They really wanted to paint a complete picture of where single-use plastics are showing up in our lives.
That's a lot of venues to track.
It was quite an undertaking. So how did they actually go about measuring all of that? Did they, like, stake out restaurants and count every plastic fork?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
Not quite.
Okay, good, because that would be a very tedious job.
Yeah, they developed something called representative meals to estimate how much plastic is associated with each venue.
Representative meals. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm picturing a plastic food pyramid or something.
Not a pyramid, but it's more like a standardized set of food and drink items that represent what people typically order in different settings.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah. So for a fast food restaurant, the representative meal might include like a burger,
A burger, yeah.
fries, a drink.
Okay, and then of course all the packaging that comes with it.
Exactly. They considered everything. The containers, the cutlery, the straws, the lids,
It's all about the details.
all of it.
So they basically created a plastic profile for a typical meal at each of these 31 venues.
Pretty much.
Wow, talk about thorough.
And the specifics of those representative meals, they actually varied depending on the venue.
Oh, that makes sense, because like what you get in a meal, food, and drink combo at, say, McDonald's
Right.
is going to be totally different from a drink plus supplementary food order at like a coffee shop.
You got it.
Like one's a full meal, the other might just be a cup and a pastry bag.
Right. So the amount of packaging is going to be different.
Totally.
And the report outlines how they meticulously accounted for these differences when calculating the plastic components associated with each meal.
Okay, so it sounds like they really tried to be as precise as possible.
He did a really impressive job.
And they also made sure to factor in like reusable options and non-plastic single-use items, right? So they were only really focusing on single-use plastic.
That's right. They wanted to make sure they were isolating that specific type of plastic waste.
This is starting to feel like a never-ending plastic party. We've got the packaging for the products, the packaging for the meals.
It's a lot.
And now, wait a minute, we need to talk about the packaging for the food service ware itself, right? Those plastic forks don't just magically appear at the restaurant.
Oh, you're so right. There's a whole section of the report dedicated to the packaging used to transport food service ware.
Okay, of course there is. These reports are incredibly detailed.
They really are.
So did they apply the same level of detail to that packaging as well?
Absolutely. They analyzed the packaging used to ship everything from plastic cutlery and clamshells
Okay.
to cups, lids, and even those little paper sleeves for straws.
So those boxes of plastic cutlery that restaurants get,
Yeah.
they weighed the box, the plastic wrap around the cutlery, even those individual sleeves for each fork and knife.
Every detail.
Wow.
And just like with the consumer products, they distinguished between bulk orders for businesses, what we call B2B,
Okay.
and smaller packs you might find at the grocery store for home use. B2C.
This is getting mind-boggling. It's packaging for the food service ware.
It's a lot of layers.
It really shows how much plastic is involved at every step of the process.
It's pretty eye-opening.
So all of this intricate analysis, it leads us to the big reveal, right? The actual numbers.
Yes, the moment of truth.
Are you ready to hear just how much single-use plastic Californians used in 2023?
Lay it on me, I'm ready.
Okay, hold on to your hats. The report reveals that in 2023, Californians used an estimated 2.4 million tons of single-use plastic packaging.
2.4 million tons.
Wow. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than 100 blue whales.
That's a lot of plastic.
It's a mind-boggling amount, right?
Yeah, definitely hard to wrap your head around.
And that's not even the whole story.
No, it's not.
Remember, they meticulously counted every single plastic component, too.
Oh, right. So how many plastic forks, straws, bread ties, and little bits of packaging are we actually talking about? Give me the grand total.
Okay, get ready for this. For packaging alone, we're looking at a staggering 84 billion individual plastic components.
84 billion. That's more than, I don't even know what to compare that to.
It's more than the number of stars in the Milky Way. I mean, it's just...
It's almost unfathomable.
Fathomable, yeah.
And remember, that's just the packaging. Food Service Ware adds another 0.5 million tons of plastic and a mind-blowing 87.4 billion components.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Californians used almost 3 million tons of single-use plastic and over 171 billion individual pieces of plastic in just 1 year.
That's what the data shows.
That's just bonkers.
It's a huge number.
It really is, yeah. But you know what? This isn't meant to be like a doom and gloom statistic, right?
Right. Yeah.
This baseline, it gives us a starting point for understanding the problem.
Exactly. We have to know where we're starting from if we want to make progress.
Like a plastic wake-up call. Okay, so we know Californians use a lot of plastic. But where do we even begin to tackle a problem this big? What can we do? Like, is there even hope?
There's definitely hope. And luckily, the reports provide some really valuable insights into where we can focus our efforts.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me where we can make the biggest dent in this plastic mountain.
One of the most interesting findings is that the vast majority of the plastic, both in terms of weight and individual components, comes from primary packaging.
Primary packaging, remind me what that is again.
Think of it as the first layer of packaging, the part that directly touches the product.
Okay.
The bread bag, the yogurt container, the plastic wrap around a pack of batteries, that's all primary packaging.
Got it.
That initial layer of plastic.
So the report is saying that most of the plastic waste comes from that first layer of packaging.
Exactly.
Not necessarily from the cardboard boxes or pallets used for shipping.
That's right. It's really about that initial point of contact.
Okay, so that's a really crucial insight.
It is.
Because it points to a potential solution, right?
Exactly. If we can reduce our reliance on individually wrapped items,
Okay.
we could significantly shrink the overall amount of plastic waste.
So instead of reaching for that individually wrapped granola bar, maybe I should buy a big box and portion them out myself.
Exactly. It's about being more mindful of the packaging choices we make.
Right, right.
It's about shifting our consumption habits.
I'm starting to see a glimmer of hope here. Reducing our reliance on primary packaging seems like a really good place to start.
It's definitely a key area to focus on.
What else did these reports highlight? What else should we be thinking about?
Another key takeaway is that we need to rethink food service ware.
Especially those pesky plastic cups and clamshells.
Oh yeah, those are definitely major culprits.
They're everywhere.
The report breaks down the amount of plastic used in different food service categories.
Okay.
And unsurprisingly, plastic cups and lids were major contributors.
They're just, like, ubiquitous, you know? They're everywhere.
You see them everywhere you go. And then, of course, you've got takeout containers.
Yeah, those are definitely a problem, too.
It's like everything that makes our lives convenient also contributes to this plastic crisis.
It's the irony of modern life, I guess.
Right. But the good news is that there are a lot of promising solutions being explored.
Okay, tell me more. Give me some hope.
We're seeing a rise in compostable or reusable alternatives.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And some cafes are even offering discounts if you bring your own cup.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
That's a great way to incentivize people.
It is. It's like rewarding people for making sustainable choices.
Exactly. It's about making those choices more convenient and accessible for everyone.
So we've talked about reducing primary packaging and rethinking food service ware. What other strategies can we use to tackle this plastic problem?
Another big one is promoting bulk buying, both on a personal level and on a more systemic level.
Bulk buying, so buying things in larger quantities.
Yeah, imagine if restaurants and businesses could source their ingredients in bulk packaging that minimizes plastic waste.
Ooh, that makes a lot of sense. It would reduce the amount of packaging coming into the restaurant in the first place,
Right.
and then hopefully that would trickle down to less plastic waste going out to
It's
customers.
all connected.
So it's not just about individuals making different choices, it's about changing the way businesses operate.
It's a system-wide issue.
Right, the whole system needs to change.
Absolutely. But one crucial thing to remember is that this baseline report is really just a snapshot in time.
A snapshot in time. Yeah.
It tells us where we stood in 2023, but things are constantly changing.
Yeah, you're right. New technologies, new policies, new products are emerging all the time. So this is going to be an ongoing process, right?
It's a constant
A
evolution.
journey, not a destination.
Exactly. And as we continue to learn and gather more data, we can refine our strategies and find even more effective solutions.
Okay, so this is a long-term commitment.
It is.
It's going to take a collective effort from individuals, businesses, and policymakers.
We all need to be working together.
Well, I'm definitely feeling more informed,
Good.
more inspired to do my part.
That's what it's all about.
We've unpacked a ton of information in this deep dive.
It's been a lot.
But before we move on, I have one last question about these reports themselves.
Okay, shoot.
They focus a lot on the weight and number of plastic components.
Right.
But they didn't really talk about the different types of plastic,
Ah, yes.
those little numbers inside the recycling symbols.
Those are important.
Did the reports mention anything about that?
Yes, they did.
Okay, good.
And that's actually a great question because it leads us to an even deeper level of analysis.
Ooh, I like deeper.
Understanding the types of plastic used is essential for developing really effective recycling and composting solutions.
Okay, so it's more nuanced than just tossing everything with a recycling symbol into the bin.
Unfortunately, yes. It's a bit more complicated than that.
Well, color me intrigued. I can't wait to learn more about these different plastic personalities and how to recycle them properly.
We'll definitely dive into that next time. It's a fascinating topic.
Awesome, can't wait.
So we've established Californians use a lot of single-use plastic.
Yeah, no kidding. Millions of tons of plastic, billions of individual components. It's kind of hard to even wrap my head around it.
It's a lot to take in, and that's why this baseline is so important.
Right, it's a reality check for all of us.
It gives us that clear picture of the scale of the problem.
But data without context is just numbers, right? So
Yeah.
how do these findings actually connect back to this bigger picture of reducing plastic waste?
Well, remember, this baseline was mandated by SB 54.
Right, SB 54.
And that law sets some pretty ambitious targets for reducing plastic waste.
Right. SB 54 aims to reduce single-use plastic packaging and food service ware by 25% by 2032, right?
Exactly. So this baseline is like our starting line.
Ah, okay, like a benchmark.
It tells us where we stand today so we can track our progress
Okay.
and see if we're on track to meet that 25% reduction target.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But with so much plastic out there, where do we even begin to make a dent in those numbers?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And luckily, the reports offer some clues.
Ooh, I love clues. Lay them on me.
One of the most striking findings is that the vast majority of plastic, both by weight and number of components, comes from primary packaging.
Primary packaging, that's the packaging that directly contains the product, right? Like the chip bag or the plastic wrap around a cucumber.
Okay, exactly. Think of it as the first layer of plastic that a product encounters.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So the report is saying that most of the plastic waste comes from that initial layer of packaging, not from like the boxes or the pallets used for shipping.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting from a solutions perspective.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, if we can reduce our reliance on individually wrapped items, we could significantly shrink the overall amount of plastic waste we generate.
So instead of buying individually wrapped snack bars, maybe I should buy a big box and portion them out myself at home.
That's one idea, and it's a good one. It's about being mindful of the packaging choices we make as consumers.
That makes me think about those single-serve coffee pods.
Oh, yeah.
So convenient, but so much plastic waste.
You're right. It's all about weighing convenience against sustainability.
Right.
And sometimes convenience comes at a high cost to the environment.
Okay, so reducing individually wrapped items is a good starting point. What else can we do?
Well, remember how we talked about the difference between B2B and B2C packaging?
Right. Business to business and business to consumer.
Bulk orders for businesses often use significantly less packaging per item.
Right. Buying in bulk seems like a no-brainer. Less packaging, less waste.
Exactly. And this is something to think about both on a personal level A&D on a systemic level.
What do you mean by systemic level?
Well, imagine if restaurants and cafes could source their ingredients in bulk packaging that minimize plastic waste.
Ooh, that would be amazing. It would reduce the amount of packaging coming into the restaurant in the first place.
Exactly.
And hopefully that would trickle down to less plastic waste going out to customers.
You got it. So it's not just about individual choices, it's about changing the way businesses operate and the way products are packaged and distributed.
Okay, so we need a multi-pronged approach to tackling this plastic problem. Reducing reliance on primary packaging, promoting bulk buying, changing business practices, it's all connected.
It's a complex issue that requires a really holistic approach.
Yeah.
And speaking of complex issues, we can't forget about food service ware.
Right. We talked about all those plastic forks and clamshells earlier. They're definitely a big part of the problem.
Absolutely. The report dives into the amount of plastic used in different food service ware categories.
Okay.
And it's clear that certain items are bigger culprits than others.
Okay, spill the tea. What were the biggest offenders?
Unsurprisingly, plastic cups and lids were major contributors.
Yeah, those are everywhere.
They're used in so many different settings and often end up in the trash.
Yep.
Clamshells and other takeout containers were also high on the list.
Okay.
They're convenient for sure, but they generate a lot of waste.
It's that double-edged sword, convenience versus sustainability.
Exactly. But the good news is that there are a lot of potential solutions being explored.
Okay.
One promising area is the development of compostable or reusable alternatives.
Ooh, compostable takeout containers. Sign me up.
Right. Imagine if we could just toss those takeout containers in the compost bin instead of the landfill.
That would be a game changer.
It would definitely help. And there are also initiatives to promote reusable food service ware,
Okay.
especially in settings like cafes and restaurants.
I've seen some cafes offering discounts if you bring your own cup.
Yeah,
That's a great way to encourage people to ditch the disposables.
absolutely. It's all about incentivizing people to make more sustainable choices and making those choices more convenient and accessible.
Okay, so we've got some strategies for tackling packaging and some ideas for reducing plastic food service ware.
Yeah.
Anything else we should keep in mind as we kind of embark on this plastic reducing journey?
One really important takeaway from these reports is that this is just the beginning.
What do you mean by that?
Well, this baseline is a snapshot in time.
Right.
It tells us where we stand in 2023.
But things are always changing. New products, new technologies, new policies. It's like a constantly evolving landscape.
Exactly. So it's crucial to keep monitoring the situation and to track our progress over time.
Okay.
This isn't a one-and-done deal.
So it's an ongoing deep dive into the world of plastic.
You could say that. And the beauty of that is that as we learn more, we can refine our strategies and find even more effective ways to reduce plastic waste.
This is starting to sound like a really long-term commitment.
It is, and it's going to take a collective effort from individuals, businesses, and policymakers to really move the needle.
Okay, challenge accepted. We've unpacked a lot of information in this deep dive, and it's been eye-opening to say the least.
It's a complex issue for sure, but I think one of the most important things to remember is that we don't have to be perfect.
Right, every little bit helps.
Every little effort counts.
That's reassuring to hear. So, what's the next step in our plastic exploration? What else do these reports have in store for us?
Well, we've talked about those different types of plastic, those little numbers inside the recycling symbols.
Right, and I'm really curious to learn more about those because it seems like not all plastics are created equal when it comes to recycling.
You're absolutely right. That's where things get a bit more nuanced. Each type of plastic has its own unique properties, which affects how it can be recycled or composted.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just tossing everything with a recycling symbol into the blue bin. Color me surprised.
It's definitely more complicated than that, and that's where we'll pick up in our next segment.
Okay, I'm ready to unravel the mysteries of plastic recycling. Bring on the plastic personalities. All right, so last time we were talking about those mysterious numbers inside the recycling symbols.
Yeah, those little numbers can be confusing.
It turns out there's a whole lot more to plastic than meets the eye.
It's not just one big plastic blob.
So there are actually 7 main types of plastic.
7 main types, each with its own unique properties.
7 plastic personalities. Okay, I'm ready to meet them.
Let's start with number 1.
Yeah.
The most popular kid on the block, that's PET, or polyethylene terephthalate.
PT.
You'll find it in soda bottles, water bottles, and those clear plastic clamshells for berries and salad greens.
PT, the king of beverage containers. I feel like I see PT everywhere.
It's one of the most common plastics out there.
It's recyclable, right?
Yes, And the good news is that PT is one of the most easily recycled plastics.
Okay, good.
It can be turned into fleece jackets, carpets, even new bottles.
So all those water bottles I diligently toss in the recycling bin are actually getting a second life.
They can be, yes.
That makes me feel a lot better about my plastic consumption.
Recycling PT definitely helps conserve resources and reduce the amount of plastic that ends up in landfills.
Okay, so PT is a recycling rock star.
It's definitely one of the easier ones to recycle.
What about number 2?
Number 2 is HDPE, or high-density polyethylene.
HDPE. Okay.
It's known for its strength and durability,
Okay.
which is why it's used for things like milk jugs, detergent bottles, and some types of plastic bags.
HDPE, the workhorse of the plastic world. So it's tough stuff.
It is, and just like PT, HDPE is highly recyclable.
Okay, that's good to know.
It can be turned into all sorts of things: plastic lumber, pipes, even playground equipment.
Wow, so those milk jugs I rinse out could actually end up as part of a playground? That's amazing.
It really shows how recycling can close the loop and give these materials a whole new purpose.
Okay, I'm loving numbers 1 and 2.
A good guys.
They're like the poster children for recycling.
Right. Easy to recycle, lots of uses.
What about the rest of the crew? Numbers 3 through 7.
Well, that's where things get a bit more complicated.
Oh.
Numbers 3 through 7 are generally more difficult to recycle, and some aren't even accepted in curbside recycling programs.
Okay, now I'm starting to see why it's important to pay attention to those numbers.
It makes a big difference.
Not all plastics are created equal when it comes to recycling.
Not at all.
Okay, so give me the rundown on the more challenging plastics.
All right, let's start with number 3.
Okay,
That's PVC, or polyvinyl chloride.
PVC, got it.
It's used for things like pipes, flooring, and some types of packaging, but it's notoriously difficult to recycle.
PVC, the rebellious one, always causing trouble.
It can be tricky.
So what's the issue with recycling PVC?
PVC can release harmful chemicals during the recycling process, so it's often best to avoid it altogether if possible.
Okay, so PVC is one to watch out for.
Definitely.
What about number 4?
Number 4 is LDPE, or low-density polyethylene.
LDPE? Okay.
It's commonly used for plastic bags, shrink wrap, and some types of food packaging.
LDPE, the flexible friend, but a bit of a recycling enigma, it seems.
You got it. While LDPE is technically recyclable, it's often not accepted in curbside programs.
Okay.
It can get tangled in the machinery at recycling facilities and cause problems.
So even though it has that little recycling symbol on it, it might still end up in the landfill. That's confusing.
It is. That's why it's always a good idea to check with your local recycling program to see what they accept.
Noted. I'll definitely be doing my research.
It's always a good idea.
What about the last 3, numbers 5, 6, and 7?
Okay, number 5 is PP, or polypropylene.
PP, got it.
You'll find it in yogurt containers, bottle caps, and some food storage containers.
PP, the versatile one. Always popping up in new places.
And the good news is that PP is becoming increasingly recyclable.
Okay, so there's hope for those yogurt containers.
There is. Technology is always evolving.
That's good to hear. What about number 6?
Number 6 is PS, or polystyrene, better known as styrofoam.
Styrofoam, the takeout container king.
Unfortunately, polystyrene is one of the most difficult plastics to recycle.
Okay.
It's lightweight and bulky, which makes it hard to process, and it often breaks down into tiny pieces that can contaminate other recyclables.
So even though it's everywhere, it's basically a recycling nightmare.
Pretty much, yeah. A lot of recycling programs don't accept it at all.
All right, good to know.
And finally, we have number 7, the catch-all category,
Okay.
for other plastics.
The miscellaneous bin of the plastic world.
Exactly. This includes everything from polycarbonate to bioplastics to those multi-layer plastics that don't fit neatly into the other categories.
Number 7, the mysterious wild card.
Some number 7 plastics are recyclable, but many are not, so it's always best to check the specific product labeling or contact your local recycling program.
Okay, so we've met all 7 plastic personalities, and it seems like numbers 1 and 2 are the easiest to recycle.
Those are the superstars.
Well, the rest pose a bit more of a challenge.
Definitely more nuanced.
So what can we do to make recycling more effective overall? Is there any hope for those trickier plastics?
That's a great question, and honestly, there's no easy answer.
I figured as much.
But there are definitely things we can do.
Okay.
First and foremost, We need to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics in the first place.
Right. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. If we're not using it, we don't have to worry about recycling it.
Makes sense.
And when we do use plastic, it's important to choose items made from recyclable materials, especially those in the number 1 and 2 categories.
So opting for that peaky water bottle instead of the one made from something more difficult to recycle.
Exactly. Those small choices can make a big difference.
Right.
And of course, we need to make sure we're recycling properly.
Yes. Rinsing out containers, separating materials,
Checking with our local programs to see what they accept.
doing our due diligence.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready to step up my recycling game.
Awesome.
Any other tips for reducing our plastic footprint?
Another powerful way to make a difference is by supporting companies that are committed to sustainable packaging.
So voting with our wallets.
Exactly. It can be really effective in encouraging companies to make more sustainable choices.
I like it.
And finally, we need to advocate for policies that support plastic reduction and recycling.
Okay.
That means contacting our elected officials, supporting legislation, and making our voices heard on this issue.
So it's not just about individual actions, it's about systemic change as well.
Exactly. We need action at all levels.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much about plastic, the good, the bad, and the confusing.
It's a complex issue, but it's one that we can't ignore.
Absolutely not.
We need to keep talking about it, keep learning about it, and keep working towards solutions.
So what's the final takeaway from all of this? What's the one thing you want listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that we can all make a difference.
We're not powerless in this.
Not at all. Every choice we make, from the products we buy to the policies we support, has an impact.
That's empowering.
It is. We have the power to create a future where plastic waste is no longer a threat to our planet.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of plastic. It's been fascinating and honestly a little bit overwhelming, but in a good way.
It was my pleasure, and remember, you don't have to do everything perfectly.
Progress over perfection.
Exactly. Just start making small changes, and you'll be amazed at the difference you can make.
And to all of you listening, thanks for diving in with us. We hope you've learned something new and are feeling inspired to join the movement for a more sustainable future.
Remember, every little bit counts, so let's all do our part to reduce plastic waste and protect our planet.
Until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.